Hey everyone, and welcome to Crushing Land. I'm Jonathan from the Land Method. Happy to have you here with us today. And today we're going to talk about a subject that has come up quite a bit over the years and is coming up more and more in recent times, including a post that was in our group just recently and also a coaching call that I had today with somebody. And that is the subject of signs on a property. Should I put signs, for sale signs, on properties? And so we're going to kind of go over that a little bit. I'll give you guys a cool little story about a deal that we had with a sign, and also going to go over a couple different things to be on the lookout for, things you have to watch out for as you're going along, and basically how you can go about doing signs, because obviously if you live in a certain area and you're trying to market somewhere else, it doesn't always work very easily unless you know what you're doing. So first off, what's the advantages of signs? Should I put signs on a property? We do put for sale signs on the pretty much all of the properties that we have. There are some exceptions. If a property is in the middle of nowhere and nobody's driving by it, we had some land that we were doing in some certain states that it was way out, and it's very rural land and it's just back dirt roads and things like that. Very unlikely that somebody is going to find that property off of a sign. So there's really no reason to put one there. We've also done deals in gated communities. There's only 3 or 4 other lots in there, 10 lots in there, whatever it may be. We've got one going right now, for example, that's in a gated community. And I think there's only like 10 or 11 lots total in there. There's no way to get in there without a gate code. And so in that case, we don't have a sign on the property. But if there's traffic on the property, if people can go by it, if people can see it, things like that, if normal, then sure, put a sign on the property. So that leads to the question, well, what happens if you don't own the property? If people say, well, I don't own it, can I put a sign on the property? And the answer to that is it depends. So first off, some people say, well, the contract gives me, if you're using our contracts, it gives me the right to market the property. Isn't signage included in that? It seems like it would be, but the short answer to that is not always. I've talked to attorneys in different states, and they said because of what trespassing laws are and things like that, you're actually going on to the person's property now, you're putting something on it, so it can be a little bit different. Nice, easy way around that, obviously, is just putting in that you have the right to put a sign on the property on the contract. In that area about marketing and assigning and all that, that's in our contract. You just put including for sale signs. That would obviously cover yourself there if that is a question. Now, of course, that's going to bring up a little bit more attention to the seller. That's the downside of that. You're looking at it, the seller will see that. If there's for sale sign on it, and people are going by and the neighbors are calling and things like that, it's bringing up the chances that the seller themselves is going to get contacted about that piece of property. I'm not saying that's a negative. It is a negative, but I'm not saying that it's something that you don't do because of that you avoid because of that, but it's just something that you have to think out and weigh it, the pros and the cons of it because of that. So when it comes to signs on it, how does that work? Well, basically, you're just putting something about the property on the sign and your phone number so that somebody can reach out to you. So if there's public utilities, you might put public utilities. If there's a valid perk, you might put valid perk test, whatever it may be. Or you may put nothing. You might just put the size of the property. It's 3/4 of an acre, so 0.75 acre or 3/4 acre, and then your phone number. These are just standard signs that you can buy at Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards, Walmart, anywhere like that. Basically, the way that they work is that it just says for sale by owner or for sale. It's just usually they're red and white. Sometimes they're white and yellow and blue, I think I've seen. And then I'm trying to think of the different colors. But generally speaking, they're red and white. They're roughly in the low 20s. For one of them, it's the sign, double-sided, comes with a stand. That way you could stick it into the ground and go from there. So how do you get the property or a sign on the property? If you're marketing 2 miles away and you have a Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever in your town, it's very easy to go there, pick up a sign, put the information on it, and go stick it in the ground, right? But if you're marketing anywhere that's even remotely far from your house, then you're probably not going to want to go about doing that. So how can you go about getting a sign in the property at that point? The short answer to that is just simply running a Craigslist ad. I know people have talked about Facebook groups, and I've had that question because I think some others teach that about joining local Facebook groups and finding people for labor and gigs and things like that. You really don't need to go that far with it. It's very easy to just run a Craigslist post. You do have to pay for them if you're advertising or trying to find somebody to do a labor or gig, but usually it's $3. So you pay $3, You put this thing out, you put it in the area of where the property is, and you basically say, I'm just looking for somebody to go out to the property and to put a for sale sign in it. This will involve going to Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever store it may be and picking up the sign and then going and putting it on the property, and I'll give you more details if you're interested in doing it. We either give one of two options. Either we'll go online and buy it directly from Lowe's or Home Depot, whatever company it is. We'll go and we'll buy it, and we'll put that person as the pickup person at the local store. Or we have them buy it and have them send us a picture of the receipt. And then obviously we just reimburse them for that. We tell them what we want on it. We tell them when you get to the property, take a picture of the sign in front of the property so that we see it there with the thing. Also take a picture of the map in your phone showing your pinpoint address so that we see you're actually at the correct property. They do that and we pay them immediately, through one of the different sources, Cash App or Venmo or Zelle or PayPal or whatever it is that they may want. It's very easy to get people to do this. You don't have to pay a ton of money to do it. So basically running the ad, buying the sign. You obviously also have to buy some sort of a permanent marker for the sign at that point because you don't have it. So you're buying it. That's a couple bucks. And then having them out there is usually under $50 is what's totally involved for everything in order to do this. Do they work? Yes, we have sold many, many, many properties over the years using signs. And one story that I'll tell about it is really quick, and just one of many, but a funny story with it is we actually had a piece of property that we had out and it was for sale, but we didn't have a sign on it. So we marketed it to the neighbors. A neighbor reached out to me. It was a cheap, low-end piece of property. I was only asking $10,000 for it. Neighbor reached out to me, said he was interested, and said, how would you like to have $2,500 for that piece of property? I said, no, thank you, not interested. He's like, well, it's not really worth more than that. I'm like, okay, I'll sell it to somebody else. He said, it's not going to happen. Didn't hear from the guy. Just for some strange reason, it went like 6 weeks. I never put a sign out. I don't know why. It took me a little while to get it out. Finally decided, let's get a sign out on the property. Did it the day it was out there. The guy was putting it in, and he was taking some pictures for me, and he said a couple of people stopped by. The neighbor saw it. It freaked him out a little bit because he didn't want somebody else buying it. He didn't want it for other neighbors. Not only did he offer me my exact asking price, he actually offered me $500 over asking because he saw those other people out there and he was a little worried that one of them would jump on it and get it instead of him, and he didn't want to do that. So he brought his price up from $2,500 to $10,500 just seeing the sign. And we've sold many properties selling signs like that. I'm not saying that overvalue or anything like that, but we've sold them. We've sold them quickly. We just had a deal that we talked about in here where we bought it very cheaply and we sold a lot of 5 of them for over $70,000, 5 different properties. That came from somebody driving by and seeing a sign, calling about it and asking what the story was. So that's a huge advantage to signs. A couple of other things that obviously happen is you're getting pictures of the property when they're out there, so you can use those if you decide to flat fee those properties. We've talked about that before. So if you do a flat fee listing on the property where you actually need a picture, you don't need to send somebody else out now, right? You have a picture of the front of the property. The only thing with signs, as I mentioned, I already gave you the first warnings, is make sure you can do it or make sure that you have written consent to make sure your written consent is good enough if you don't own it. If we own it, it's going on almost every property that we have. The other thing is don't put information that can change. People always say, well, don't I put the price on it? Well, if there's a chance that you're going to lower the price in a few weeks, you don't want to have to do this all over again, right? And you obviously don't want to put a price and then have somebody reach out to you or not reach out to you because they think it's too high. You put a price on it. You put a price on the property of $30,000. You realize, man, this property is not really worth that. I'm only in it for $8,000, so I'm going to lower it to 20. That's fine that you're lowering it to 20, but anybody that sees the sign still sees 30. And if they're not anywhere near that, they're not going to call. So obviously, if you have a price, if you have the price in mind, but you don't write it, you're going to get more calls. And that obviously helps you get feedback as well, because some people call in and you tell them the price and they're like, I just don't see it. Well, what price is good for you? And then maybe you can have a conversation with them about that as opposed to them just driving on by because they saw the price that you were asking. So when it comes to for sale signs, yes, they still work. Yes, they're very, very good at marketing. It's very low cost marketing. It's very easy to get somebody else to do it for you. It's very easy to run them all over the place. And because of that, it's a nice added thing that you can add into your business to get even more buyers coming to you. And this is something that we really break down and go into detail on in our coaching programs and in our Language Blueprint course and all of that. So if you're interested in any of that, make sure you reach out, have a conversation with us about that, and we can help you with more information like this. So everybody, again, thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time on Crushing Land.